The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Defence and reads, did he raise concerns about the performance of the former Associate Minister of Defence with Rodney Hide? If so, did he inform the Prime Minister about those concerns?
The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp.
Mr Speaker, in reply to the question, may I say this? No, I did not have concerns about the Associate Minister's performance. However, I did have concerns about inappropriate language in two documents generated out of the Associate Minister's office, which I did raise with Mr Hyde. It was not necessary to raise those issues with the Prime Minister.
The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Mr Speaker, supplementary to the Minister, was he, quote, informed by a National Party activist that ACT board member Nick Kearney has a copy of a Cabinet paper entitled Defence Assessment, dated 2010, close quote. As the former Associate Minister of Defence wrote last week, if so, did he advise the Minister for the Security Intelligence Services?
The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp.
Mr Speaker, I actually have asked Mr Kearney about that, and no, he does not have such a document, and I'm absolutely confident that there's been no inappropriate treatment of documents held in the Associate Minister's office.
The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Well, Mr Speaker, to the Minister of Defence, did he or his staff raise any security issues regarding ACT ministers or their staff with the Prime Minister or his staff, and if so, what and when?
The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp.
Mr Speaker, there was an occasion where I was given some information by Mr Hyde, which is now in the public domain. I did ensure that that was raised with Ministerial Services.
Supplementary,
Pete
Mr
Hodgson.
Speaker. What might he have said to his former Associate Minister of Defence that caused... What might he have said to his former...
Point of order, the Honourable Rodney Hide.
I'm just thinking of helping the member, but you can't surely have a question that says, what might a minister have said? He either did say it or he didn't.
Order. Order. I appreciate the Honourable Leader of the House's assistance, but this is a point of order. And members these days are entitled under standing orders to ask questions that are speculative like that, so long as they're not outrageous. They must not contain any outrageous content, and I just would ask the member to be careful of that. But I think we should hear what his question is. The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Defence and says, what might he have said to his former Associate Minister of Defence that caused her to write on a document dated August the 17th that, quote, the Minister of Defence believes Rodney Hide has passed this paper on and he is upset that he could not trust a ministerial colleague to keep a paper he gave him to himself, close quote.
The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp.
Nothing of that nature was said, Mr Speaker, nothing of that nature was said. I in fact received a phone call from someone else.
The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
To the Minister of Defence, was his former Associate Minister of Defence broadly correct when she wrote on August the 17th that, and I quote, Rodney Hide also told Wayne Mapp that he wanted me removed from my Associate Defence Minister role. Wayne Mapp told me subsequently he protested vigorously about that, saying that we, brackets, Mapp and I, close brackets, we're an effective team and I was well regarded by his colleagues and the Defence Force.
Order. I simply couldn't hear that question at all now. Because I couldn't hear the question, because of the level of interjection on this occasion from National Party backbenchers, I can't determine whether the question was in order or not. Now, I have to be able to hear the question. I'm going to have to ask the member to repeat it, but I would ask him to keep it as short as is, or make it no longer than is necessary to make the question clear, and should not contain further material than is necessary to make the question clear. The Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Was his former Associate Minister of Defence broadly correct when she wrote on August the 17th that, quote, Rodney Hide also told Wayne Mapp that he wanted me removed from my Associate Defence Minister role? Wayne Mapp told me subsequently he protested vigorously about that, saying that we, brackets, Mapp and I, close brackets, were an effective team and I was well regarded by his colleagues and the Defence Force.
The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp.
Mr Speaker, I have no ministerial responsibility for anything in a document that's an internal document for the ACT Party, but can I say this? Mr Speaker? The Associate Minister and I did have an effective working relationship.
The Honourable, point of order, the Honourable Pete Hodgson.
Acknowledging that the last part of the question was answered, I would just take issue with the idea that the Minister of Defence has no obligation to address the question when it is about comments made around him by his ex-associate. He, of course, is responsible.
Order. Interesting issue that's been ordered. This is a serious issue, and it's an interesting issue that's been raised, that the Minister does have responsibility for statements with respect to defence made by the Associate Minister. There's no question about that. The question here is whether this document was made, or that this being referred to as contains information written in the capacity of a person as Minister of Defence. And maybe I need to seek a little further advice on that. At the end of the day, I have to be guided by ministers as to whether they have ministerial responsibility, but then the balancing issue there is that I can't allow ministers to claim they simply don't have ministerial responsibility for something if they do have ministerial responsibility for it. And so on this occasion, I think what I'm going to have to do probably is take the Minister's word for it at the moment and undertake to look into the matter for the Honourable Member, because I don't want to rule incorrectly on something that has some significance, because ministerial responsibility is important. Ministers are responsible for what Associate Ministers say in their capacity as Associate Ministers. What they say in their capacity as an ordinary Member of Parliament, not so clear about that. And so I undertake I'll look into the matter further and come back to the Honourable Member. If, in fact, I need to come back to the House, I'd come back to the House. Otherwise, I'll come back to the Honourable Member. Question number... I beg pardon, is this a supplementary question? The Honourable Rodney Hide.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Defence, does he believe that the issues that the Minister raised with myself were appropriate to raise with me? And does he believe that I handled the issues that he raised entirely appropriately?
The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp. Order. Order. Look, a serious question's been asked. This is a matter that's of some substance, and I think the Minister should be given the courtesy to reply to that. The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp. Point of order, the Honourable Darren Hughes.
Mr Speaker, very interested in what this answer will be, but just so we're clear, are you ruling that this Minister has ministerial responsibility for the behaviour of Rodney Hide?
No, not at all. No, what the Minister was asked about was whether he felt his comments, his advice to another Minister had been handled appropriate, had been treated appropriately. And as a Minister, I think he has certainly a reporting responsibility for that, and I don't think that's unreasonable. Point of order, the Honourable Pete Hodgson.
I do acknowledge the possibility that the Minister of Local Government has an interest in this or that aspect of defence, but it is more likely, it seems, that Mr Hyde's conversation with the Minister of Defence was Mr Hyde acting in his capacity as the leader of the ACT Party. The Minister of Defence has no responsibility for that.
Mr Speaker?
I'll hear the Honourable Rodney Hide.
Mr Speaker, the Minister clearly was acting as the Minister of Defence. The Minister of Defence raised issues with me. I'm asking as a Member of Parliament whether he believed he did the appropriate thing as the Minister of Defence, raising them